Welcome to the Bloody Broads Pod. We're your Bloody Broads. I'm Bhavna Sharma.
And I'm Jamie Howard. We are your horror guides from page to screen and everything in between. This week we have Robin on, a guest of the pod. Robin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, guys. Hi. Hey, what's up? Hello. My name is Robin. Robin Dubois. I'm not sure if you guys say last names or not, but I love saying my last name. I am here to talk to you guys about Get Out, one of my favorite movies of possibly all time. Yeah, possibly of all time. Yeah, possibly of all time. I was contemplating a little bit, but then I was like, no, it's definitely one of my favorites of all time. Yeah.
No, this automatically went into my top 10 when it was announced, so I get it.
I just remember when it was announced, everyone was like, Jordan Peele doing horror, like he's supposed to be funny. And I'm like,
funny, yes.
Clearly you guys have not been paying attention to Key and Peele, because Key and Peele had some dark shit in it.
Oh, yeah.
Which I loved. But yeah, I was super pumped you wanted to come on and do this. Robin is our first guest in the Black History Month series that we are doing. And I felt that this was an incredibly appropriate movie to kick it off with, because, I mean, if nothing else, this movie kind of changed the game in so many ways and spun off many, not copycats, because I don't want to discredit other people's work, but a lot of things that were inspired by it. And of course, Jordan has his own production company, Monkey Paw, that is now doing so many amazing things, and I cannot wait for it. But yeah, I say we jump right in.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Go for it, Robin. Let's go. Let's go with the opening.
Alrighty. So first things first, I was not a big horror fan. Let me just put that out there right now. I used to despise horror, and this was and it was a big thing of, I always anticipated what was going to happen throughout the movie, and I was just not in it to win it. Like, every single time I saw a horror movie, everybody's like, oh my God, did you see that? It's so scary. It's so gory. And I'm just like, but yeah, it's a horror movie. That's what's supposed to happen. You know, it's supposed to be jumps. It's supposed to be scares. And it wasn't until Jordan Peele came out, and I think a little bit before him, to be quite honest, but it was really Jordan Peele that solidified that horror could be more than just blood. It could be more than just, severed limbs. It could be something where it tells a story, and this story is so sensational to, like what you said, Jamie, it goes on to having these so-called copycats, or this wave of like people who feel as though, okay, cool, now we have a new voice in horror, and now it's time to tell a different story in horror. And I was about to curse.
You can curse.
We routinely drop F-bombs.
I love that. Oh my God. Like, I don't know, because like I said before, like I used to be in like the Deep Blue Sea, the Freddy Kruegers, the Halloweens and stuff that. And they will have like the token Black person to kind of just be like, okay, cool, we're going to give you this horror story, and then we're going to bring in one person to kind of like butter up all demographics and kind of give you, so everyone can buy a ticket and everybody can see their experience within this movie. However, it has never been a thing where, unless it's like Tales of the Hood, which
fave.
It's inside the name. We're gonna see Black people,
right?
It's Tales of the Hood.
No, there's the twist. You don't see anybody.
Yeah. No, right. Imagine Tales of the Hood, but it's like an all-white suburb. It's what hood is this? I don't want to be here.
I almost dragged another movie that kind of does that, but I'm gonna leave that take for a different episode because it's a little
spicy.
Okay,
we'll talk about that later.
The movie in private.
Yeah,
yes.
Tell us online.
I need to know this movie in private. All right, but back on schedule and back on topic. What I was going with that is, when they told me that Jordan Peele took a lot of references from other different horror movies, I was kind of just like, okay, but which ones? Because Get Out is kind of like blackity black, black, black. And then, you know, if you're talking about past horror movies, I'm like, okay, cool, show me which ones. And so upon like research and stuff like that, I was seeing that he took kind of like inspiration from Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby, both two movies that I was kind of just like, you know, if I see it, if it's on AMC, I'll give it a watch. But I'm not renting it out. I'm not, you know, I'm not going the extra mile, not going 1, 2, 3 movies to kind of like, you know, see this for free. It's just not in me. So a lot of the references that was being placed throughout the movie that also tied into Stepford Wives as well as Rosemary Baby, I didn't really understand. But what so far-fetched, cool, I'm tied it together, can understand and still see the horror within it. So it was never a thing where I had to automatically watch these movies in order to understand where Peele was trying, the direction that Peele was trying to go within the whole Get Out. It was very much that he tied it all into his central theme of the entire movie. And even if I didn't see Stepford Wives or Rosemary's Baby or even The Shining, there were very clear points where it was kind of like, okay, cool, this is what the story is about. This is what I'm giving you. And if you want to go back later and watch these two movies, it will be like a very much aha moment. But I'm not pulling your leg to go watch these movies, you know?
Yeah, and I think the thing that Get Out did outside of, you know, giving us an extremely black
Why is
horror
this
movie.
doing this?
And I really wanted to touch on kind of what you said, Robin, about, you know, not only did Get Out give us a incredibly black horror movie, black people were not the butt of a joke for the whole horror movie. I mean, we get Rod, who is amazing, and I love him. But at no point does this feel minstrelly like other Minstrel. um, but you know, it gave us a gateway, like you said, for people like you who might not otherwise go back and check these references, so to speak. And I always call it doing your homework. Because we were talking about, you know, a couple episodes ago, why people might have been a little disappointed. And I think we named like 4 different movies. And I'm like, I feel like the reason people didn't like it is because they didn't do their horror homework. And that's not a gatekeep thing. That's maybe we should be doing a better job of making it a more welcoming and open space. And so I just think this movie is so important for what it did for the industry and specifically the genre itself. And I think that it gets caught up in this cycle of like, you know, was it too heavy-handed? Was it enough? You know, is it one thing or the other? It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, and I just want to touch upon like that as well as like just even if you just took out, and I hate using this term because it shouldn't be political, but if you took out all the politics from the film or like from any of the themes or anything like that, and you looked at it just straightforward as a genre film, like it's such a breath of fresh air. Because like you were saying before as well, like, you know, having horror movies by that point were tired. Like you knew exactly what was going to happen. You know who was going to do it. The only wild card was when you were going to jump. And most of that was like musical cues or, you know, somebody walking in the background or, you know, something like that to make you have a jump scare. But this was one that finally let you use your brain. And I like using my brain. I like getting from a horror movie. All I want to do is be scared and be able to use my brain and not guess it within the first 10 minutes. And I did not guess it within the first 10 minutes. I did not know we were going to go down this like fucking horrible, disgusting road that we went down.
Unlike with Malignant, where we were watching it together and like Bhavna just unmutes because we watched it together in a room on Clubhouse. And Bhavna, like 10 minutes into the movie, is like, oh, that's her evil twin. And I was like, God damn it, Bhavna.
That is definitely me through horrors, yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, I mean, just even from the beginning, when she says, or sorry, when he says to her, you know, do your parents know that I'm Black?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think there's this tone that gets set kind of from that opening scene.
Mhm.
And again, I talked about this in the Candyman episode. To set the tone for a movie with either the opening credits or just the first scene or two without relying on like a montage or anything like that. And I do love a good montage in a movie. Is such a strong, it just shows the strength of the script, the strength of the production in general, and then the strength of, you know, the director of photography and everything. Um, I don't know. It's just, it's so wild to me that people ever discredited this movie. I don't understand.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that first.
I
No, go ahead, Roman.
no, go for it. Go for it.
Oh, like that first scene though with Andre, in that like clearly, and I mean, I don't have time to explain it. If you know, you know that clearly white neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like it's a white neighborhood. Just get it through your head. It's a white neighborhood. Anyone that grew up in
Yes.
a city that had like even a slight suburban aspect to it, like on the edges and stuff, you know that is a white
That's what you
neighborhood.
think about. Mhm.
The
Yeah.
opening scene is brought to you by the letter G for gentrification.
Exactly. I mean, if you didn't know from the visualization of it alone, you knew from like Andre, like Keith Stanfield's character going like, where the fuck am I? Like, I don't know where
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go, you know,
That
on the
is too
phone.
funny. Because like years ago, I was kind of lost in like in an area like that.
Yeah.
And I called my mother and I was like, listen, I you need to like come get me because I'm not sure where I am. But like there's no street signs, there's no lights, it's about to get dark, and Black people in darkness don't go together because you can't see us, then we get hit by cars, there's killers outside. It's a whole thing about it. It's a whole thing about it. We're
There's a
just
whole
like,
thing. It's a thing. I get it. Like I grew up in and I still kind of not in the same part of that neighborhood, but I still I grew up in the east end of Toronto and in Scarborough for anyone that knows your Toronto geography. And I grew up in like the let's just call it the hood side of things. Like I like, you know, the
mhm.
building next to me when I went to go visit my friends, like bullet holes and piss in the elevator, totally a regular occurrence. Didn't even like need to, you know, we don't have time to unpack all of that. But that was a whole thing. But then if you went like when we would go trick or treating or like even to walk to school, we have to walk through like the housing residential area, like the back
Yeah,
streets to get to school. And like all of those houses were not inhabited by people that look like me or people
right.
that look like Robin.
Mhm.
And like they had the best candy though for Halloween, by the way. They had the best candy. Some of them had full bars.
Full
Um,
bars. That's what we
Full
go for.
bars.
I was just about to make the full bars joke, Bob.
Like the Bob's Burgers. Like we have to take a vote for full bars.
Exactly.
Well, Robin,
But-
so in our Halloween minisode episode, we talked about that episode of Bob's Burgers because it's
I
our
watched.
favorite.
I
Oh, yeah,
watched.
duh. What am I
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah, it
continue.
was great. It was
It's
great. It
so
was great.
great. But no, but just to say, like, but I only went through that neighborhood during the day, never at night.
Right.
I felt safer
Right.
cutting through the backs of the buildings and like the parking lots and all of those. I felt much safer cutting through those than I did cutting through that neighborhood. And so when I watched this scene in theaters, like all of like the childhood, not repressed, but like all those like memories you didn't even like think about because you know it was instinctual. I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, he's in danger. I don't even need the
Right.
music. I don't need that sinister World War II music playing in the back. I
No,
don't
very
need
much
any of
what you
that.
said before, Molly, you in danger, girl. Like it was giving very much that. But I
Yep.
just find it so funny how like how our different ethnicities kind of teach us like what neighborhoods are considerably safe for us and which kind of pose a danger. And even if, you know, it's like the cleanest neighborhood and there's no necessarily like gunshots, trash, and whatever, it will be more it it seems like it will be more safer for a Black person or a person of color to be in this quote unquote ghettos as opposed to being in a suburban area, you know. And it definitely does contribute a lot to history and showing that a lot of Black and brown people weren't really accepted in these neighborhoods. And it just feels it's honestly humorous to me that we actually feel safer in a climate where there's like gunshots, there's like piss in the elevator, there's like fights all the time. But then when we go to the suburbs and you don't hear music out, you don't hear people driving through with music in their cars and stuff of that nature, you're kind of like, I'm in a strange land. Like, what's going on here? I need to get back to the ghetto.
Exactly. Like my first year of university, I went to I went out of town for university. I born and raised in Toronto. Like even my high school, even though it wasn't in the same neighborhood, I was still downtown Toronto. I was still in like the areas everyone's like, oh no, it's dangerous, that kind of thing. Like my school was actually a couple blocks away from where a lot of the sex workers like to congregate at night. Sorry for this term, it's probably outdated, but it's like, they would go to the diner, the 24-hour diner, and at 3 a.m. we called that the hooker rush. It's true. I would go in there at 3 a.m. and I got some great brunch advice from a lady while I was in the bathroom helping my friend throw up. She did not steer me wrong with that Eggs Benedict. Anyway, aside. So in my first year of university, I went to a town called Waterloo, and it's about 2 and a bit hours outside of Toronto, like going up into like the asshole of Ontario. And I've always had white friends. I've always had a decent amount. I've always been like one of the only non-white people in my friend groups and stuff like that. But it was such a fucking culture shock to go somewhere where the entire town was basically white and like Mennonite and like all this stuff. And I was going like, first it was like the food that hit me. Like, where are all my food options? Why are these things so bland?
Where's
for
flavor?
lack?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where's the flavor? Why is the only Indian spot called curry in a hurry? Right?
Oh my Lord.
I'm like, if you have a good curry, it's not made in a hurry. Takes at least 3 hours
What?
if you don't have a pressure cooker. Like,
What in the microaggression? Absolutely not.
curry in a
That
hurry.
is too funny. Curry in a hurry.
Curry in a hurry. But it is but just to touch upon your points too, Robin, is just like you don't even realize how bad it is until you're taken out of your environment, like kind of like how Andre was taken out of his environment and Chris was taken out of his environment. And it's like you think it's bad where you are, where at least you have other people that have had similar experiences to you in any way, shape, or form. And then you go somewhere else and it's like, what the McFuck is this? Like,
yeah.
I guess it's no secret. I guess it's no secret as to why I got my first depression spiral while I was away at school. Take away everything I know and love and have a touch point for.
Well, and I think that ties in perfectly because you guys are just so frank with how it felt to be, a fish out of water, so to speak. For me, this movie was the perfect allegory for when you do put yourself out there and you're like, all right, I'm going to try to not be judgmental and put myself in this situation. The family continually gaslights him into thinking that it's safe to be in this place.
Yeah.
And he's told again and again and again, oh, there's nothing horrible happening here. In subtextual ways, when we come to find out there's a lot of horrible things happening at their house.
I would have voted for Obama for a third term.
Right.
My God.
Right. That line, because we all know somebody's well-meaning dad like that. We know some well-meaning people.
Horrible.
Yeah. We know some well-meaning people our own age like that. But this whole film is like, there's the obvious piece of, the rest of the world feeding off of Black bodies and what they produce and what they're capable of. But on subsequent rewatches, and I feel like I've had to have seen this movie 6 or 7 times minimum by now, but not counting times, you just throw it on. But the more I watch it, the more it sinks into me. No wonder, people have this stereotype of like an angry Black person. But it's a pressure cooker buildup, like you said, Bobna, a pressure cooker building up of like, you don't lash out of nowhere. I don't care who you are. There's always a buildup of something. Even if you're Kyle punching a hole in his wall because he just lost at Halo, like there's an underlying thing there. Yeah. And so this is such a good allegory in my opinion, from an obviously obviously a white perspective of this film, of how many times growing up did I make my Black friends feel, like, oh, just come hang out, like it'll be fine, it'll be safe. And thank goodness from a young age that my parents were very frank with me about race. And like, I have friends of many races, religions, everything. But, even out of ignorance, like how many times growing up did my friends who were POC feel out of place, felt in danger? And how many times do we as a society keep telling Black people, yeah, you're totally fine to walk down the street with a can of Skittles, my bad, y'all, a can of Arizona tea and a thing of Skittles.
I mean, Skittles come in cans in America? What?
I was about to say, is that a new flavor?
No. I was just, your can of Arizona iced tea and your Skittles that the cops say is a gun. Like, how many times do we tell young Black men, like, oh, you're fine. You're fine. Just come into work. Yeah. You're not going to get made fun of for your hair. You're not going to be in danger of being threatened or whatever. And so Robin's notes for this are incredible, by the way, y'all listening. There are so many layers to this that I really want us to talk about each point as much as we can, but I really wanted to hear Robin's thoughts on the deer, because to me, that motive was one of the more important ones throughout the film.
Yeah, because you see it way more than once.
Right. Oh my God. It was like a constant motif of like, the deer, the doe, all that good stuff. And the buck and stuff like that. So let me just say what I'm actually thinking. So in the beginning, as everyone knows, we see how Chris and Rose is like traveling down to her parents' house. And then they come across like the deer running in front of them, and essentially them hitting the deer and it dying inside the woods. I thought that was, first time watching, I thought that was a little bit like a foreshadow about what we're going to get into later. And of course, it kind of was in a way where Chris kind of went through all of these like traumatic experiences and stuff like that within the house. But the first time watching it, I was thinking, okay, cool, this man's going to die. It's not going to be a thing of he's going to come out of this alive. It's not going to be like a happy ending. We're not going to see, the happily ever after. We're very much going to witness this Black man die. And I didn't feel anger within that, only because I knew this is the story that feels visceral enough to be true. This is a story that it's not going to go. It's not going to try to be palatable to white people. It's not going to try to kind of be like a scapegoat. It's going to give you the real, the nitty and the gritty. And you're going to have to either take that and suck it up or walk out of the movie theater, as I've seen many, many people do.
Same.
Yeah. I've seen a lot around the auction time is when a lot of white people was kind of just like, all right, well, this is nice. And
I'm sorry, was that mirror too shiny for you people?
Right. I was like, can we talk about this auction scene? Because first of all, how fucked up. My brain, I was like, this is some like textbook shit. Like I never been more uncomfortable for a good reason in a horror film. Even through like gory stuff. The whole scene, I was like, what is going on?
It took a whole nother approach to silent auction.
It did. And I mean, like anybody, like I can't speak. Sorry, that took my brain just a second too long. Oh my God.
Right?
Right? Yeah. I had to lean. Sorry, you guguys. If you heard anything, I had to lean away from my microphone because I was like, no, he didn't. Nope. That was perfect.
Just saying.
But then the thing with that scene, though, that silent auction, I can't speak to the American educational system and like the other various ones, but at least in the Canadian one, we did learn about those, the auctions when in the time of slavery and all that stuff. Like, very watered down because they don't want to hurt the kids with the education, but we did learn about them. So at least the audience I saw, like when I went to go see it, I saw it twice in theaters when its first go. And then with people, otherwise I went back by myself because I'm like, it's fucking amazing. Take all my money, Jordan Peele.
Okay.
But the both times I went with people of color because I'm like, I'm not here to babysit anybody else's experience. I'm not here to babysit anybody. But during that scene alone, I saw at least on each viewing in different theaters, different areas of town, people leaving, and they were all white. And it's like, oh, was that not like, did you think these things didn't happen? Did you
You
think we
don't
were
like
going to
how
have
your
a movie
ancestors
about?
look?
Yep.
Mhm.
Did you think you were going to walk into a movie that was very, overtly about racism and not see something,
Racist, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
racist? So
I found that really, really funny though, because I'm not sure if you guys are like, I am a writer as well, and I kind of submit to a lot of agents as well as like different sort of websites and stuff like that. And a lot of the times, these agents and stuff like that would be like, okay, cool, this is okay. Like I would write about random stuff, like say, like my characters are always black, but it will be like, black people like going to college and or black people just like working a job at a restaurant and just like everybody's tea within the restaurant and stuff like that. And I really had this one agent was like, okay, cool, this is cute, but like, do you feel this? Like, is this actually telling the black experience? And I'm just like, baby, this is about a black person working in a restaurant. Like, where'd you want me to come up with the slaves coming out of the kitchen or like,
Stop.
what?
So,
I'm just asking.
so it's so funny you bring this up because our friend Sheree that we just had on an episode that just came out, our
the
Candyman
Candyman episode. Yep.
She's a writer,
Watch that
and
one.
yeah. She's a writer, and she's talked at length, but she also talked in that episode about how like she just wants to write like fun black girls at brunch being bougie. Like she's
Yeah,
like, where's my
right.
Sex in the City without the stereotypes, you know?
It's like, let's go to Starbucks and get a PSL. Like,
Right. And so
Yeah.
to me, I think it's really funny that people want to rely on tropes when it's convenient for them. And for example, they pick these young black men for Rose to date and bring back to the house because they fit some kind of profile. Like that scene
Mhm.
where he's tied up down in the basement and she's got her headphones in scrolling for NCAA athletes.
NAACP athlete.
That
God.
sent me because there is and I'm very upfront about this. Like I love sports, love them. If anyone follows me on Twitter, they know I live tweet a lot of football games. I'm not sorry. But there's a
Nor should you be.
joke. There's always not a joke, but like, I mean, it's just a very obvious thing where like a lot of pro black athletes have white wives. And like, I think that was very obvious commentary in this movie. And, I'm not saying that. I think we all know if we're listening to this podcast, we're not saying that every relationship is abusive or that every relationship is a bad thing, but there is a stereotype there in this situation that I think is backed up by reality. And Robin, you pointed this out too. Rose's father keeps bringing up the fact that he doesn't like deer, and he literally says bucks, meaning like male deer.
Mhm.
And I know that Robin pointed out, and I knew this, but I guess it just made me think of Django Unchained, which like is a complicated movie in and of itself, but how, the calling black men things like studs and bucks and referring to them as essentially, livestock terms.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, but then they still decorated their whole house with it. So it's like, they don't want the experience of being black, but they want to have the ornaments and ornamentation and decorative stuff that comes, the aesthetics that come with being black. And
Yeah.
just every time I rewatch this movie, that scene hits me again and again and again, where they keep showing the deer head on the wall.
Yeah, the line that took me out though in that vein of the dad talking about all that stuff was like, it's a privilege to experience other people's culture.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was trying to remember. That's what I was trying to remember.
And I was like, oh, like your first viewing, you don't know what's up. You don't know about that freaky deaky junk science going on in the basement. But like, but regardless of that, you obviously, they're not subtle. You get that vibe of like, okay, these are some racist motherfuckers, but who's the most racist? Who's running it? Is it the entire family? Are they in on it? Like, this is where my brain goes when you, not just in film, but when you meet racist people. It's like, how far
Yeah.
does this go? Who can I deal with? Who's the reasonable one? And I mean, that's just my personal experience with when I meet up with racists, which I try to avoid. But his line of like, it's a privilege to experience other people's cultures. I'm going like, oh, this is the one. Oh, he's the one.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, he's it. He's like
Yeah.
prime
Bhavna, who's
racist
the-
motherfucker right here.
Bhavna, who's the actor that plays the brother?
Caleb Landry Jones.
He's such a good
He's
actor
just
at being
born
a
to play
creep.
creeps.
Yeah.
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 He was
I
in the
feel
last
bad.
Exorcism,
Yeah.
the Eli Roth produced film about like that preacher that's like, I don't do real exorcisms, they're all fake. And like it's a
I'm
documentary
always a
film.
little sketchy about people that are like too good at being racist, like actors, when they're just like a little bit too good at being racist, or
Leonardo
like,
DiCaprio.
you know, when they're just no, right. And also like the whole cast in The Help, it was just like a little bit too like on the nose for me. You know, I was like, that's very like Oscar nominated sort of like work you're doing here. It's
Or
just
Green
like
Room.
it's second nature. Yeah.
I was like, Viggo Mortensen, you okay there, buddy? You want to talk about something?
It comes second nature, and it just goes off the tongue like verbatim. But I just find it hilarious that that the brother is so easy to play this insane person. Like it's no question about it. From the first time you see him, you're kind of just like, okay, something's off. And I'm not sure if it's because of his like pale skin. And you know, I'm really like very weary about men with pale skin now. So I was just like, something's very creepy about this guy, and the fact that he just kept directing the conversation to like his MMA fights, and he said something along the lines of, "If I had your body, I would like crush it in these tournaments," or something of that nature. And I'm just like, from that the first viewing, I'm kind of just like, what you mean? Like, you know, kind of just like, if you had his body, like, I'm like, the first thing, and I was kind of like, okay, so are you into him as well as Rose? Or, and then kind of like more so later when everyone started touching on Chris, I was just like, all right, so is this some sort of like fetishizing, you know, we got going on where everybody's just like sexually attracted to the Black person?
Does the whole family want to fuck him? What's going on?
The first time I
Right.
saw this movie, I was like, are they having a key party? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, why are we copping feels? I mean, don't get me wrong, he is a very attractive man.
Right.
I'm looking
Very.
respectfully.
Yes.
But
I watched
I'm
for the
just-
plot.
the plot. But I'm like, why are they grabbing him? And it's the same, you know. I talked to all of my friends that are Black women who we talk all the time about people touching their hair without asking, or it's, to me, it's just as bad to think, why do you have to ask the stranger to touch our hair? Why do you want to touch a stranger's hair?
Yeah.
Right.
COVID doesn't exist. What's that? And it's this idea of like, you're special. Like they're telling him that he's picked out of the group, that he's, all I can think of is when people tell athletes, you're so well spoken. And I'm just like, bitch.
Did you expect him to be dumb?
Yes, everybody expects, I mean, on top of the stereotype of a football player being kind of a dumb jock or whatever, like, you know, there's this narrative of, we've plucked this Black boy out of, you know, his poor existence and allowed him to be the face of a team. It's very prevalent in American football, but I don't want to get too far.
Listen,
down that
I'm taking you down a hockey side road for a minute. So hockey, super white sport. It's what I'm into. I'm Canadian. I can't help it. You want to watch sports, you want to be into it, you got to assimilate. My mom and family came over in the 60s. You know, hockey's a thing. Toronto's a hockey town, whatever.
Yes.
Don't have time to unpack all that either. However, the way growing up as a very racially critical, gender critical kind of, you know, person in high school and stuff, like, and I will attribute that to living in the city and whatnot. Watching how the media talks about the handful of Black players in the league, was disgusting. Even like, you know, they would think of them as enforcers or goons or the people that are just in there to beat other people up for people that don't do hockey. But then you started getting your super skilled players like PK Subban. What up? Toronto's
I
finest.
love him. I love him.
Love PK Subban. He also falls into that athletes with white girlfriends thing. He dated Lindsey Vonn for a very long time. Who is so white. Anyway, so he played in Montreal for a long time and they basically chased him out of town and they really couldn't come. They weren't really subtle with the reasons that they were coming up with to chase him out of town because he is a superstar athlete. Like he's got talent that like most of these white boys don't have in their pinky finger on the ice. And I'm like, that was about the time I kind of dropped out of paying attention to the league because I'm like, you can't even get this guy who's setting records in goal scoring and all this stuff. And what, just because he's unapologetically black, you can't be on board with that?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think,
anyway.
No, you're good. And I think it's just so prevalent. And I know that, you know, not people that listen to us that we know of, but I know a lot of times, anytime you bring up things like this in more than one episode in a row, people are quick to be like, oh, this is just what this show is now, but it's just reality. And I think people had the same reaction to this movie, like, oh, why did it have to be so heavy handed? I think it had to be, you know, not to gloss over too much of the plot, but we get the iconic scene where people made it the Get Out challenge of like him running, the older male character running fast in the dark.
And then like cutting
the grandfather.
Right. Yeah.
What was his? I'm blanking on.
I forgot her name is Georgina.
Walter, I think.
Walter.
And then Georgina's the woman. The
and there's the iconic, and I use that gif all the time of her saying no because
when her brain short circuits.
Yeah, and I didn't catch that twist. I didn't predict that twist at all the first time I saw this movie of the grandparents being in the bodies. I was like, huh? Like what? I just wasn't picking up on it. I thought they were just being brainwashed because of what the mom does to Chris with that creepy tea glass and tapping the, her silver spoon, which I love that you brought this up, Robin. If you want to talk about the silver spoon and the tea.
Can't wait to talk about tea.
Go for it. Go nuts.
Can't wait to spill the tea.
Spill it.
No, but like when I first saw the whole tea, maybe more than first saw because it had to be like my third time, I was kind of just like, okay, so I see how the tea is kind of like, the teacup is the whole instrument for the hypnosis and stuff of that nature. But I started like digging a little bit more deeper into it. And the point that stuck to me was the silver spoon. And I couldn't get over this silver spoon. And primarily it's because of the whole saying and the whole quote unquote motto that a lot of white people are only successful because of their generational wealth. And that ties heavily into the whole silver spoon thing, because a lot of the times white people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. You know, they don't really have to do the hard work. They don't really have to, quote unquote, get it out of the mud the way Black people do. So I just thought that was really, really interesting that the instruments that she was using to hypnotize this Black person was instruments of her own privilege. And it wasn't just the silver spoon, but it was very much the fine china that she was, touching the spoon with. I was just like, it's very much dancing on this line of very much white people take things from every culture and kind of try to cultivate it as their own and use those devices in order to, whether it's subtly or whether it's, unconsciously, I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't give a rat's ass, but they still do take these devices and by all means use it against the people that they were, that created it, i.e. The White House. Slaves made the White House, and we didn't get a Black president until 44? Barack was 44.
44.
But listen, okay. Robin. Bradley Whitford's character would have voted for him for a third term if he could.
So,
but even that's hilarious in it, and it's right too, because just saying you would have voted for a black president, um, for a third time means absolutely nothing. As we know, it's really Congress that makes all the rules. It's really Congress that, pulls all the strings and stuff of that nature. So as long as the majority of that Congress is white, I don't give a shit who you're voting for. I really don't care who's the puppet, behind, I don't care. I don't care. So just saying the whole, I would have voted for Obama the third time. In my mind, if I was Chris, I would have been like, all right, girl, your daughter told me you was going to say this. Very much, Jamie, peace. Let me get the rental. I'm out, and I think a lot of this contributes to the fact that I did have one white boyfriend. Sorry for everyone listening, because I'm probably going to put my friends onto this. But I did have one white boyfriend, and it only took one time for him to kind of say something, like outlandish, for me to be like, okay, cool. Lacing up my boots, calling my Uber. I'm not going home. It really just only takes one time. And I found it humorous that Chris kept entertaining it over and over and over again. I kind of wanted him to walk out, but then I was at the same time like, okay, so where's the other 120 minutes gonna come in? If he walks out right now, we don't have a movie. So just sit your ass right there, Chris, and just take the abuse.
If I were him, I would have bounced after that first talk he had with Walter. Where it was pretty like early on, like, I was like, okay, I could deal with the
black mold.
No, the part where he goes outside and he was like, this is after the running incident. This is after that night. This is after he get hypnotized.
Okay.
He goes out and he's talking to him, and he's talking about Rose, and he's thinking like, oh, does he want to fuck her? But like, obviously we now know he's the grandfather, and he's being like, oh, isn't she special? Isn't she great? Like, after that, I would have been like, okay, I can deal with the voting for a third time, because I think I put in my notes, we all know people like that family, like not to obviously to that scientific degree, but like, all the versions, like they're all the versions of like we're trying not to be racist, but we're actually really fucking racist. Like that's what that family is. And there are different degrees of it. And there's the I don't give a fuck with the brother who's just like, like, I'm not racist, but, I'm going to talk about your body and how I covet it. Then you have Rose, who does the overcompensating. I think I wrote this as well. It's like she oversells the part. Like we all know a Rose. We all know somebody that's maybe just being awoken to their white guilt, or they're just being like, their eyes are just opening. And so they're overcompensating.
Performative.
It's very performative. Like what the fuck, like, like, well, what's their problem, what's all this stuff? And it's like, as someone that's been on the other side of that, like obviously not Rose, but on the other, on like the Chris side of things, it's like, yeah, okay, like it doesn't matter, like you're like, I appreciate that you feel a certain way, but you getting mad about it isn't gonna help me. That's why I'm not getting mad or getting whatever about it. Like that's not going to help. So like that, you could see that in Chris's eyes clearly, but I would have bounced after that talk he had with him. I would have been like, y'all are fucking weird. Like to quote Rod, like, what is this, fucking sex slaves? Like, what are you
that line? That line sent me into orbit. The way he delivered it, I was like, oh my God.
Because it's not just sex slave, it's sex slaves.
Yeah, he says he says it with his whole chest.
Not just slaves, sex slaves.
Sex slaves.
So we get the hypnosis, and then we get the sunken place for the first time, where we learn about what really happens to his mom. Cried real tears the first time I saw this movie. It's a running joke at this point, Robin, on the show, that if there's childhood or familial trauma, we're going to talk about it at length. And I think so much of horror, kind of like what you were saying earlier, like you were talking about how a lot of it, there's all these patterns and tropes and things like that. And it's funny because to me, Bhavna and I kind of laughed off mic, because that's why we like horrors, that it can be a little predictable without punching down quite as much as some comedies do. It's not a perfect genre by any means, but we're drawn to it for that reason. And the level of just psychological, I think, exposure that happens in this movie is just as important as the physical trespassing that happens. So he gets mentally used as much as he's physically used. And the sunken place fucked me up the first time I saw it. I was like, what is this? What is happening? Not that I didn't get it, but it was, it's his subconscious, and it's so beautifully shot and edited and illustrated with that,
Yes.
you know, because it's a combination of like real things being shot and then a little bit of animation, I think, just to touch. And
Just
so
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, and it's that blending of realities that I think is perfect for being hypnotized, and it's being put to sleep to your own reality of being stuck. And then that shot of him being stuck in the chair and being tied down and helpless. I mean, my God, just
Yeah. Like for anyone that's had, we're going down mental illness lane here, but anybody that's had issues with disassociation or like fallen back on that was actually a pretty, or like, disassociation while having an anxiety attack or a panic attack. That imagery was just perfect for that feeling. Like that's the feeling where it's like like physically and mentally, it's like, yeah, you see physically, he's like looking at you, he's like there, but like, then you get the look inside and it's like he's miles away. Yeah. And it's like he can see everything, but yeah,
he really can't do anything. He's literally just paralyzed. And I think she even says that, what was her name, Missy? I think she even says it, Catherine Keener. I think she like literally says like, he says, why can't I move? And she says, you're paralyzed. And I thought that was like very, very interesting, because a lot of the times when we, Black people, when we go inside spaces that are just like predominantly white, we start to code switch. And we start using words and start using vernacular that's comfortable to the space that we're in at that moment. And I thought that was really, really funny, because in that second, you can see him floating back and not being conscious of what was going on. And a lot of the times that's me inside white spaces, predominantly white spaces. Let me say that, because I do have white friends, and it's not always uncomfortable, but putting a Black person in a predominantly white space, like an office or even like a school, it gets a little unsettling sometimes. And sometimes you even step back and like look at what's going on around you, and you're like, am I supposed to be here? Like, where am I right now? And I felt a lot of that when I seen Chris like falling. He was very confused. He did not know what was going on. It was his first experience within the sunken place. So it was kind of just like, you can even see it, because the first time he was kind of just falling back. It was nothing going on. He was just falling back. His face was horrified. However, within the second time he goes inside the sunken place and she traps him within the sunken place, he's now grasping towards the light. He's grasping towards the box. And in a way, that's a lot of Black people. That's a lot of it, which ties to our story, is that we're always trying to cling towards the person that we are before we got into this space, in order to hurry up and claim ourselves and get the hell out of this space. And I think that's not something that's widely expressed within on screen. However, if you're very much Black, or if you're a person of color, you automatically understand that, like, this is some scary shit. This is, I'm not sure how that happened. This is some scary
I thought you were just thumbs upping your own comment.
No, yeah. Like, what's going
Sorry guys, for the people listening, Zoom has those little things where you can like put an emoji in agreement, and I thought Robin was thumbs upping us, and I was like, yeah, he's like on a roll.
I was so scared for a second. I was like, who's behind me?
You looked like that video of Cardi where she's like, what is that?
What is that? Oh my God. But, no, yes, that was very much my reaction.
Yeah, but the gosh, you said so much just there.
I'm sorry.
No,
it's amazing.
I mean, in a good way. Yeah, we're both, Bob and I are just like silently nodding our heads. Like, it's, I wanted this episode to be a love letter to this movie, and I think so far so good. The cotton in the chair.
That was not a subtle thing.
I just had like a visceral like shiver through my body. Sometimes I'm really glad we don't put the video version of this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like making faces and looking crazy. So he when he's down in the basement, when they tie him up and he's caught, he picks the cotton out of the chair. That's not subtle,
No.
but it immediately reminded me of a couple of, gosh, this had to be over a year ago now. It was like right when I first got on TikTok, I started following a lot of like historians because I love history. I like following anything kind of off the beaten path, and I kind of like macabre history. So like,
Same.
yeah, like you guys know, like I know, I love the history of like why we have embalming in America. But anyways, this was a couple months ago now, but a historian was restoring an antique furniture chair. And Robin already knows the guy I'm talking about. He's a Black man, he's a Black historian. And as he's cutting open the bottom to reupholster it, he pulled out a clump of human hair. And Bhavna's face is like horrified.
I'm not surprised, but
right. It's not a surprise. It's a disgust, because I wish that's the kind of stuff we had in museums outside of the National African American Museum in DC, which is by far the best Smithsonian, period.
Yeah.
That I've been twice, and it like tears me to pieces every time in a good way. But this, oh, it's so good. That moment where you're like, he's literally going to have to dismantle the system that he is in to get himself out and to safety. And you pointed out something, Robin, with the cotton that he does. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because more so, one, I want to touch on the furniture and how the stuffing of the furniture were the hairs of Black slaves. So now if anyone looks at a regular chair and sees how much stuffing requires, for the chair, you can only imagine how many slaves' hair they cut off in order to replenish a whole entire, like love seat. I'm not sure. It was just like a regular chair. He just showed the handle, so I don't really know how big it was, but I think it was just like a regular sitting chair. But even still, that had to take a good, like 10 slaves, 12 slaves, if that. And I don't want to like stereotype too much, but Black people don't have this long, luxurious hair where it's like, you can just cut it off and all of a sudden 2 weeks later it's growing again. No, it's a lot that gets these follicles working, So in order to cut off a Black person's hair and just leave them, especially a woman, and just leave her stripped bare, it says a lot. It's gross. It's disgusting. But you just have to think about American history in general. I think it was George Washington. His teeth wasn't made out of wood. He took teeth from slaves and put it inside his mouth. And literally everyone thinks that this man was wearing teeth full of wood, but it was actually the slave's teeth. And it's crazy because a lot of this stuff is not brought into American history, and a lot of it is just like bypassed, and a lot of people don't actually know. And so with the fact that Chris took the cotton out of the chair and put it within his ears, and for me, it was kind of this way of dismantling everything we know about Black people picking cotton and stuff of that nature, and instead using that own device to kind of, I want to say beat the oppressors, but very much damn near just kill the motherfuckers. It's not a thing of, and I love the fact that when he kills the dad stumbles and a candle falls on the floor, and now the whole entire house is kind of like burning up and stuff like that. That was a lovely ode to slavery back in the days as well, because a lot of the times when slaves really they was not with the shits, and they did their riots, they would burn down the master's home. And even if they were still on the boat and got the means to do so, they will burn the boat down and just kill everybody, And so I thought that was a lovely ode to, if you have the will and you have the means to do so, burn the entire shit down.
Yep.
Burn the entire shit down.
Absolutely.
And that kind of ties back into Jamie's point earlier, where it's like people don't do that. They don't lash out. They don't, burn the motherfucker down out of nowhere. everything adds up. And
Yeah.
oh boy, did he have a lot of shit to add up.
Yeah, and and because it's Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw Productions, we don't just get like that scene of him being tied to the chair and being forced to watch this really cheesy infomercial style video. We don't just get it in a I'm going to hit you over the head with this way, which some people need that. We also get it in a very artistic way, and we get another reference to a horror film with the TV being unplugged. And Bob and I talked at length in part 1 of our Shining episode. I was like, come on now, the TV is unplugged. How is it playing this? Like,
right.
Like,
No, yeah,
come on.
Yeah, we're like, what the?
Robin, didn't you say the flight was like Flight 237 that said over the loudspeakers? Yeah.
Yeah, when he was having a conversation with Rod, you can hear like over the intercom, it was like Flight 237 now departing or something of that nature. And in my mind, it automatically, mind you, I was a fan of The Shining, but I wasn't like, oh, let's get into The Shining. I did not know Dr. Sleep whatsoever until I listened to your podcast. And I was like, oh my God, this shit actually happened. And I had to like go watch it again. I literally had to go watch it again. And I was like, oh my Lord. That's literally when I created the post, was like, nah, y'all got to get into these broads because they're talking about shit that I didn't even think about, Yeah. And mind you, I'm a whole film major. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a home film major. So I thought I would probably like know everything you guys were talking about during that first podcast. And then I was just like, whoa, okay, let me go watch it again. I couldn't read it. It was too much pages. But I was like, let me go watch it again. Let me just see, if everything that was accurate. And you guys literally blew me away. So when 237 came on Get Out, I was like, is that another like Shining reference? And then I had to research it, and it was literally like, yeah, The Shining is like Peele's favorite movie. And I was like, I get that because, like I was saying before in the beginning, there was kind of like the baby blue lettering that says "Get Out" the title, and also for The Shining, the title was baby blue just as much as well. And I was kind of like, that's really dope that he did that. He paid that little homage.
And another thing is like his shot about that scene, it's another kind of like pseudo Shining reference, is like the shot where it's coming in and you see how symmetrical the room is, and like just that shot is very much like a Kubrick Shining shot, like when like the one where Jack's typewriter scene in the hall, like where it just kind of swoops in, that was very much like that scene of like, okay, here's your entire room, which was
Jack a dull boy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which was eerily it was eerily symmetrical too, except for the buck on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was the only thing that wasn't symmetrical because its head was like turned a little bit, but everything else was like you can chop that shit right down the middle. And I guess that ties into the poster as well, because the poster is Chris in the armchair with half black, half white behind him. But man, Peele really knows how to work in those references. Like,
I'm telling you,
I'm just in awe of him.
I really am. And thank God that we did get a little bit of comedic relief in this. Like I said, I'm glad that he wasn't like the butt of the joke. I love that Rod winds up being the savior. And I don't want to gloss over what happens right before that. But when Chris does get out of the basement and he starts busting heads and killing the family one by one,
bless.
He just, in my mind, I'm like, Nuck If You Buck is just playing in the background.
For me, it was Mama Said Knock You Out.
Oh,
okay. I can get that.
Bhavna always has the 90s references, and I love it. I'm from the South, Robin. So to me, I'm just like, we knuckin' and bucking. Okay. Reel it in. But it's so funny to me because I love that he uses, obviously, the deer to start his first kill. He gets out of the house. He gets the car keys, which I don't know about y'all, but when I saw this in the theater, people were like clapping and cheering during this part. And I loved it. I saw it on opening night, and I'm so glad I did. But when he finally gets the car and then he is like trying to escape, doesn't he hit Georgina? Does he hit Georgina?
Yeah. He hits Georgina.
Okay.
It's Georgina. And that in that moment, I was kind of like, if he would have continued on, you're good. You know, you can get out of here. You know, you'll be. Of course, Rod was coming to save you, though. So if you didn't really know that part, of course, you're just putting Rod into danger's way. However, the movie was cutting off anyway, so I really don't care. I mean, I do care about Rod. I do. Let me not say that. I do care about Rod.
We love Rod in this pod.
We love him. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Dr. Seuss. No, but definitely yes. We love Rod. But I just feel like if he would have moved on, after hitting Georgina, he probably would have been okay. You know. But the whole fact of that, he had flashbacks. I'm assuming flashbacks of his mother getting hit by her hit and run and stuff like that. He was kind of like, okay, no, I have to go save her. Mind you, he already knows that, you know, they're now transporting these white people inside Black bodies. And still there's this feeling like, okay, cool, but I still have to save her, you know? And I thought that was very clever because a lot of the times, Black people will kind of ignore a lot of signs in order to just help, you know, someone in our I guess in our community, or like someone that we can, you know, kind of relate to, and they will like ignore all the signs in order to do so. And even in this case where he's very much in imminent danger and his life is on the end, he goes back for this Black woman that reminds him of his mother. I thought that was very masterfully done, and I thought that was beautiful that he'll even put that inside, because up until that point, I was like, okay, I wasn't even thinking about Georgina. You know, she wasn't even on my mind anymore. It was very much kill Rose, kill the brother, kill the mother, you know, kill everybody. You know, everybody.
Kill these bitches, get the fuck out.
Everybody gotta go and make your grand escape. Yes, no, very much so. Very much so. And then all of a sudden, Georgina comes in, and in the movies, you can hear, I know people got tired of me, because bitch, go on. Go, just go, drive. And because I already know it's the grandma. I'm like, drive, that bitch gone, go. And then all of a sudden he goes back for her, and I'm just like, oh.
The groans, yep.
I think that's such a good insight into what you were saying, but also like what a good person Chris was, and also the debt that I feel like a lot of Black men feel like they owe their mothers and their grandmothers. And it just speaks to like the idea that if one of the people in the family, quote unquote, make it out, they have to bring everybody else up with them. And that's a heavy burden.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I'm all the way # save Black women, protect Black women, all that good stuff. So I definitely understand why Chris went back to go get her. Me per se, I watch a little bit too much horror, so I kind of, after I hit it the first time, I kind of would have just been like, all right, she's gone. You know, let me just continue on, call Rod from the car, you know, whatever I got to do. I would have thought she was gone.
Steal that bitch's phone.
No, but okay, she unplugged mine.
She unplugged mine. I'm gonna take hers. Let's go.
We're trying to be final girls here, y'all. We're not.
Okay, I'm trying to be the first Black final girl, because it seems like they're hard to come by nowadays. And so I thought Chris would have been, and he still is the final girl. But I thought that moment, if there would just been a clear shot of him driving down the road and just like smiling, now that he comes to realization, like, I just killed all of these white people. You know, I was inside a totally new environment. I just killed all of these white people trying to kill me, and I got away. I just needed that clear shot of him smiling while going down, because that's how I was inside the movie theater. I was like, yes, my man got out. He made it. He's not dead. I was so happy. But then in the back of my head, I'm kind of like, okay, so where Lakeith at? You know,
right? Like, where'd he go? Where's Zatter? Did you get his business card before he left? Like, who was that?
For Georgina, but you didn't go back for Lakeith.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, so we're just gonna leave him? Okay.
Yes.
but
and Walter too.
Yeah. Listen, but I don't think he was like, obviously he wasn't thinking clearly. What am I saying? Of course he wasn't thinking clearly. But that was my first thought. I was like, where's Lakeith? And that's not just because I am very much like enamored with Lakeith Stanfield.
Who doesn't love Lakeith?
I love me a good Stanfield.
Yes.
Yes. Again, respectfully, I just it's so funny to me that we're all like, oh, maybe the final girl. But what were you gonna say, Bhavna?
Oh no, I was just saying. Speaking of Lakeith, and all of that stuff, I want to talk about the major theme that we haven't really touched on yet, which is the goddamn fucking cops.
Every single time they have an interaction with them in this movie, I'm just
I know.
Here we go.
For anyone that's listening, if you haven't figured out that we're ACAB, like, come on, guys. You haven't listened to us before then. But first of all, when he gets asked for his ID when he wasn't even fucking driving. Like, okay,
Yeah.
take out the masterful, like, okay, we know why she blocked him off, and that was all that performative, like, you know, like, I'm just trying to protect you because I can. I'm using my privilege, when really we know it's just because she's like, fuck, if we get caught, if they know who he is, they're gonna come looking for him. He won't just be another statistic. I'm counting on him being a statistic, but just the way the cop was like, and the cop wasn't even being menacing at that point, which I think Peele did like work that in perfectly, was that half the time it's not like, show me your ID. It's show me your ID, but the effect is the same on the person being asked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're from a community that's targeted, like the Black community, like, you know, people of color, like, you know, God forbid you're a teenager and a person of color, like you're gonna get, you know, targeted. And it's anyway, it doesn't matter if they're asking in a polite, quote unquote polite, calm tone, or if they're asking in a very menacing tone. At the end of the day, the thoughts are still going to run through your head like, fuck, am I going to get a record? Is this going to go on record? What are they taking me for? Does it fucking matter what they're taking me in for? You know, and especially now, when in the last couple of years, where not saying things have ramped up, but I'm saying things are more publicized.
Mm-hmm.
That's the argument I have with anyone that I bring this up with, and they're like, "Oh, it's happening more now." I'm like, "No, people are just recording it."
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
this
just
has
brought
been
to like,
happening.
Yeah, when the cop asks for his ID, I think that was so beautifully done. Not because of how aggressive or less aggressive he was, but more so because it says something when a movie maker is able to you know, spike that fear within like the first 20 minutes of, you know, because the first half, or not even the first half, the first like quarter of the movie, you're starting to get like all of these signs that you don't really know what's going on. However, all of the signs are there to tell you the story that you're about to be engrossed in, you know? And it's hilarious that as soon as they get on the road, Chris is asked for his ID by a cop. Now, if you're a Black, you already know, like, oh shit, like this is, you know, this is the moment where it's about to go down and stuff like that. And in that moment, Rose kind of like sticks up for him and stuff like that. And she's kind of like, you know, well, why do you need his ID? I was the one driving. And in that moment, in that very exact moment, you're rooting for her. You know, you're like, Rose, yes, bitch, like stick up for your man. You know, you like BBC, all that good stuff. Stand by it. You know, stand by it. Yeah, you know, that's my man, and I'm gonna stick beside him. Right? Go for it, Rose.
I hollered.
And then as soon as it gets to like where they're at the house, and you can start seeing these like passive aggressions from like everyone that they encounter, and Rose is the only one like, you know, she's like a little chihuahua trying to defend her master or whatever. And it's it's kind of like comforting in the beginning half. And then towards the middle, it's kind of like, all right, so what's her angle?
Yeah.
And then a little bit more down, you're kind of like, oh no, I've seen this white bitch before. I know exactly what she's up to. I know what she's doing. You know, you automatically start to see that. And I think it's hilarious. I put it inside the notes, but I didn't really like make a comment on it. Rose. Her name is Rose. And I thought of automatically when I heard her name, Rose Among Thorns. You know, she's the only one that's kind of just like sweet. She's like, you know, don't treat my Black friend this way. And while everybody else is making noticeable passive aggressions, you know, on his skin color, what it is about, you know, what is your intake on the Black
his dick
race
size
in America?
at one point?
Child.
Yeah. That threw me off.
Child,
I was like, oh, I didn't know we were going to go
is it
there.
better?
Yeah,
Is it
like
is it true what they say?
yeah, like
What?
but to Rose for a second, even in that moment with the cop where you're rooting for her, you also and Robin, you can tell me if I'm off base here, but the feelings that I got were from Chris's perspective was like he was ready to pull out his ID, right? Because in
Yeah.
that situation, you're always told, like I was always also told to just comply to like path
Yeah.
of least resistance, all that kind of stuff. Not that I've had to deal with the cops much, I avoid them as much as possible. But in any kind of like that kind of situation, doesn't have to be cops, any kind of authority figure, you just kind of go along, especially if you didn't do anything wrong. Like
Right.
eventually the truth will out. Eventually something will kick in. Like if you just comply, they're not going to have any reason to be aggressive towards you, whether that's yelling at you to killing you. Like,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from what I got in that situation was as soon as she started going, I started panicking.
Yeah.
Because I was going from his
Mhm.
perspective, like, you're fucking making it worse. You're making it
Mhm.
worse. He doesn't have a reason to come for my ass until you started going, like, yeah, they're not going to go after you. You think they're going to give a shit about you? Like, who the fuck are you? They're going to come after me now because he asked me for ID. I didn't comply and I'm resisting because you're resisting on my behalf.
Right.
So that was like the panic I got. Like, that was why that scene kind of not terrified me, but like, that put me on edge when I was
Yeah.
watching it, because I was just like, you're making it worse. You're making it worse. You're making it worse.
And I think
So
that makes.
Go
Go ahead, Bev.
Go ahead. I was done. I was just like,
our brain cells getting ping ponged back and forth. I think that the interactions they do have with the police throughout the film make the ending that much stronger. And thank God they went with this ending and not the original ending. I do understand.
Yes.
I do understand why that original ending was written. So I'm sure everyone knows this already, but just to recap for the listeners, again, which I'm sure you guys know this, the original ending had Chris getting shot by the police, a la the ending of Night of the Living Dead, which again, very strong nod to Romero, very strong ending for a film. I've said it before, to me, horror is the inevitable. Like there's a terrible thing that's going to happen. We can't do anything about it. We'll meet it when it comes, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when Rod showed up instead of the police officers, you want to talk about an entire theater of people clapping and cheering?
Yes.
hollering,
Yes.
everything.
It was like Endgame.
Yes, exactly.
It was like the end of Endgame. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. No, it was fucking great. And like the fact that he just came through and he did it, like this kind of give me a second to rein my thoughts in, but this kind of comes back to your point, Robin, that you made about earlier in the scene where it's like Chris was doing anything he could to help someone from his community. He didn't have to know who they were or anything like that. But that is kind of like what we get represented in Rod. Because Rod went to the police and like that whole scene, yes, it was, if you're looking at it from a surface level, it's funny. But if you're looking at it from a critical lens, it's terrifyingly accurate.
Yes.
Like first of all, you think like, this is how I get when for me, it struck from like an Indian perspective, or like the way when Indian people meet other Indian people or people of Indian descent, it's an automatic, like you relax. So I could tell why Rod kind of just relaxed in front of the black police officer, like, to be like, okay, one of us on the same page, don't have to explain all this generational trauma and all these cues and all that kind of stuff. So then you could tell like immediately when he was just like, yo, like, I forgot what he said, but
he said, and she's a white girl. And then that's when the police officer is like, was that part?
That part, but before that, where he called, what did he say to Chris? Did he say like, oh, my boy's missing? That's what he said. He goes, my boy's missing. My boy's missing. And then she's like, oh, your son is missing? And he's like, fuck, no. He's 26. Like, he's not my son.
He's an adult.
Yeah, and then you could see him going into panic mode now because he doesn't know how to interact. He had a whole like script in his head and he doesn't know how to interact with this cop, and he's just like, no, I'm dog sitting, this is the dog, like, and then he starts like verbal diarrhea, like blah blah blah, sex slaves, like, and then she brings in her other cops, and I thought this was a great detail from Jordan Peele, was to have the cops be not white. There was like a brown and a black cop that came in as well, like, and we know, like, at first you're led to believe that, oh, they're taking it seriously. Like, okay, you know, they're taking this missing persons complaint seriously, blah, blah, blah. And then when they start burst out laughing and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could recall like 4 or 5 different things like this about,
Yeah.
you know, through my friends' various experiences and, you know, what I read in the news and et cetera, et cetera. Like it was, it was a, yes, it was great comic relief, like from like a surface level, perspective, but like, come on, I'm sure all of us have stories like that where like someone wasn't taken seriously by not just the cops, but like, you know, authority figures and all that. And that I thought it drove home a really important point that like, first of all, like you don't have to be, just because you're the same from the same community doesn't necessarily mean that they've got your back.
Right.
So like, whereas like Chris kind of exemplified the person that should be like, you know, that what we want to be in our community, those cops were definitely like the what ends up being half of who you encounter anyway. For the people that just go like, like, I'm not gonna take this seriously. Like, you know, fine. If you look at the case from its merits, he was only missing for like a day. You know, he went to his girlfriend's place. Like, if you're looking at it from like just a black and white, these terms, man, these terms. Great cookie, bad term.
Yeah. I love those cookies.
I love those cookies too. And Shake Shack makes a black and white shake. Oh,
so good.
So good. But back to my own point where I think I just went off the rails on that one. But you know, like it was just it was one of those if you know moments, which is 90% of this movie. But you know, on surface level, you're gonna get entertainment out of it, but on a deeper level, you're like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like, is that what's gonna happen if I go missing?
That was a truly scary moment for me in the movie theaters, to be quite honest. And I think around that time, my sister was still in high school, and it made me think about a time where she was like coming back from like a basketball game or something of that nature, and her phone died. And she was gone. She was like supposed to be home at like 9:00 p.m. and it was like 11:30. And I'm now like, where the hell is this girl? You know, like I'm going off the rails. I'm now like frantic and stuff like that. And I called the cops, and they were kind of just like, you know, well, how long has she been gone? And did she run away? And this, that, and the third. And it was like also, it was kind of like victim blaming in a way, where it was kind of just like, you know, maybe this is just her, you know, acting out and stuff like that. And I'm like, pause, you don't know who my sister is. She's not acting out. I need you to do your job, the one that the taxpayers pay you for. Mm-hmm. That's what I need you to do. And find my black little girl, you know. So when I saw that scene, I thought that was really, really funny and very indicative of the society we live in right now, because those cases are not taken seriously. And we can even see that within 2021, how there's a slew of Black girls going missing, you know, every single day. But then there's one little white girl goes missing, and boom, they found her like nothing, you know. And it's social media was over it, you know. Like everyone was on it, and they found this girl within less than a month, which is crazy, because a pharmacy right around the corner from my house has a whole wall of Black and brown and even Hispanic females that went missing within the last 3 years, and none of them found yet. I was honestly so floored at that part, because I'm just like, it could happen to me. It could happen to it could happen to anyone. And the fact that he said, no, he's not a little boy. He's 26 years old. And all of a sudden, she kind of had a sigh of relief, you know. Yeah. She was like, okay, I don't have to do the paperwork. I don't really have to take this seriously. I can now just sit back and let bygones be bygones, you know?
Yeah, but to tie into that, like I don't know if I talked about it on the pod before. I'm pretty sure I have. If I have, then you're going to listen to it again, people. But I worked in the, what's this called? The Village in Toronto. It's the, or the gay village, even though I don't like using that term because it's a very diverse village. I worked there for a long time at a wine store, like the wine store. So we were like a multi-million-dollar store, just to give you an idea of the traffic.
I remember you telling me this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I worked there while, we're getting true crime here, people, while Bruce MacArthur was on his spree. For those of you that don't know who Bruce MacArthur is, he is a serial killer, a white serial killer, self-hating gay man. who targeted brown people on the low in the village. And he whatchamacallit, so he would target them, and we at our store, because a lot of them were our patrons, because we were right by all the clubs, so everybody would come in, for a little pre-drink, grab their cans of cider, whatnot, blah blah blah. I remember having a few interactions with the cops there, and we would have their posters up in the window, we would have all that stuff, but just those few interactions I'd have with the cops, that scene kind of reminded me of just like, they didn't fucking care. They were just like, have you seen this person? Do they come in? When was the last time? Blah, blah, blah. Here's a poster. Like, that was basically it. And so watching this scene, I'm like, yeah, how many people have this experience?
Yeah.
Like, you go and you try and reach out for help, and this is what happens. But God damn it, Jordan Peele.
I know. And I think that's just such a good summation of like this film in general, is how many people have had an experience like this where they felt like they tried to assimilate, or they tried to force themselves to be comfortable in a situation, and it wound up taking something from them. And I think that's, yes, it's told from a Black perspective, but I think that's a universal thing people can relate to, is when you don't trust your gut and when you don't trust that intuition. Wow. Robin, thank you so much for just being such a good, thoughtful guest. And like, I am floored by the notes you wrote for this episode.
No problem. I know they were quite extensive.
No, please.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, if you see mine and Bhavna's notes, normally on Google Docs, they're like literally 4 pages. I'm like, all right, we got to reel it in a little bit. Since you're a guest, I would like for you to start us off with your final closing thoughts.
About the movie, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much made it clear. I very much love Jordan Peele. I love everything he does. Candyman, Lovecraft Country, Nope, coming in 2022.
I'm so excited for Nope.
I don't even care what it's about.
Same. I was just like, I saw a cloud. I was like, Jordan Peele, let me go. And Keke Palmer, maybe that's Keke Palmer. I gotta go see that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I love everything Jordan Peele, but also just I love everything like blackity black. I love everything about Black people. I love everything putting us in not only in a damaging light like Tyler Perry does profusely, but just like illuminating, how much success we have, how much light there is within our life. It doesn't always have to be depression. It doesn't always have to be, this Black trauma. And even if it is this Black trauma, it needs to be in the space where it's required, i.e. horror. Not like family drama like Tyler Perry again. Or Lee Daniels.
We do not like Tyler Perry in this pod.
Same, girl. I know I have a lot of people that get on me about it, but listen, Perry's not for me. I'm sorry. So I love everything, but I love horror in general, but very much Black horror speaks to me because there's not a lot of it, so every chance I have to speak on it, I have to bring it to someone's attention and let them know, like, yes, this is very much horror, but this is what it's saying, this is what it's saying beyond it.
Bhavna, closing thoughts?
Oh my God. Just insert love letter here. Like, they're normally I'll have 4 or 5 critical things to say about things that I even love, but like I've watched this movie at least 10, 12, 15 times and over the years, and it's one of those movies I just throw on. I'm like, I can't think of anything to watch. I need something to watch, and then in an odd way, it is a bit of a comforting thing to watch. And then I just throw it on. I don't have to pay attention to it. I know exactly what happens. Blah blah blah. But this was very much a breath of fresh air in as a horror fan, as a film fan, as a pop culture addict. This was very much a breath of fresh air, and I can't wait to see this done for other cultures as well. I'm kind of low-key, high-key a little pissed that in the wake of movies like this, that the one that gets South Asian representation is Evil Eye. Come on, Blumhouse, come on. that movie was shit. And relying on a lot of stereotypes and a bunch of shit. I'm not going to dive into that right now, but just I just can't wait for other people to, have the Jordan Peele effect. And like, I love this man. I will watch anything he does from now until eternity. What was I going to say? Like, I'm just like, I'm like all over the place with this thing because it's just so fucking good. I think it should be required viewing for a lot of people, like not to get a little like mean or whatever about it, but maybe some people need to be tied up on that chair instead of watching the Coagula video, whatever the fuck a Coagula is, and watch this movie instead. Like, that's what wait for some people. Have this be like mandatory, like racist rehab viewing.
Yeah.
Like,
no, yeah. I think this can be a scholarly sort of like research. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Like just the next racist person that comes at me saying a bunch of bullshit, I'll just be like sliding across the table, just a DVD, just like, here you go.
Watch Get Out.
Watch this. Watch Get Out. And if you feel if you don't feel uncomfortable, then you are the wrong type of person, my friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, long story short, if none of you have watched this video, what are you doing with your lives? Or the video, movie. What are you doing with your lives? Watch it. Please watch it. Please watch anything Jordan Peele does. He puts a lot of care and work into his stuff. And just like I've said many times before on this pod, he also reminds me of Edgar Wright in that this movie is made for multiple viewings because you're not going to get all of the references in one go. You're not going to get all the references in 4 or 5 or 6 different goes. You're going to get something new. And he's made a movie that can last a long time and will stand the test of time. There's nothing in this I could see aging poorly. Yeah. So I love it. Please watch it. It's best. Jamie.
I mean, yeah, like you guys have kind of said it already. I think that, now Jordan Peele is getting his flowers, but when this movie came out, he very much was not with the wider community. Within the subgenre of horror that this is, yes, absolutely. So it makes me very happy that now he's able to make all this amazing television with the newest version of Twilight Zone and all these new films he has coming out, even the stuff that he produces, not directs and writes himself. I'm super excited for the future. Agreed that this movie is required viewing, not just for horror fans, but film fans in general. Yeah, I just can't wait to see what he does next. This is one of my favorites. And so Robin, where can the people find you? Where would you?
Sorry, one more closing thought. I just remembered this, and I think it's worth mentioning. And I know I've mentioned this to Jamie offline, but one of my friends, Emma, friend of the pod, shout out Emma, told me one day, and I forgot what we were talking about, but she just said, I could totally see Taylor Swift get out somebody, and I lost my entire fucking shit. Just keep that in mind, guys.
Hey, Bob is trying to get the Swifties after us. Those girls like to tussle, so I'm not saying shit right now.
But come on, think about it, guys. Think about it.
I was going to bring up a problematic family before, but
we know who. Robin, you and I know who.
If you guys invite me next time. Yes.
I saw that note and I was like,
okay, yes.
I was like, that's who I was thinking of too. We'll say it this way, a certain family that is famous for a TV show. And we'll leave it at that.
Yep.
We're gonna wake up after we release this episode and have like 1,400 comments with snake emojis in our or red scarves in our.
Listen, if any of you people that are listening that are my friends know my opinions on this, so.
But anyways, I'm glad you brought that up. Robin, where would you like the people to find you? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
You guys, both actually. Not on Facebook. Off of that now. It's too many.
Yeah, no.
Sorry. You can find me on Instagram. My name is Cleopatro. It's CleoPatroo. Sorry, I had to think about it for a second. I've had this screen name so long, it's ridiculous. And you can find me on Twitter as Robin Boir. It's ROBINVOIR. You guys can find me on either of those. I think I'm going to start a book club next year, so look out for that.
I'm in.
We love to read.
Yes, look out for that. It's definitely going to be a virtual sort of like
Perfect.
thing, and I think I might do it like February-ish. First book's going to be Lovecraft Country, of course. Yes, so tune in.
Well, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
You're
We, as always, are the Bloody Broads. You can find us at Bloody Broads Pod on all social media. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.